From cardboard condos to converted buses and homes built out of literal dumpsters, today we're going to check out some unreal pieces of real estate that have surprisingly luxurious interiors. So let's couch surf through the craziest looking houses that you'll want to laugh at until you step inside. Imagine your friend invites you to a shindig at their new place and you rock up to this. What? Man, that's off the rails ugly. It'd be hard not to laugh at them for living in a train car, but you should hold your judgment until they invite you inside. See, behind this icky exterior is a chic, modern living space with all the amenities of a regular home. Located in Portland, Oregon, this is an original 1949 Pullman railcar that measures 85 feet long and 9.5 feet wide, giving it an impressive 800 square feet of space. In the early 2000s, Liz Mapelli bought the car and spent $250,000 outfitting it with a bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom with a special incinerator toilet that recycles your waste. Burnt human poop. Can somebody light a candle, please? Liz hasn't fitted the home with running water, but she says that it could easily be provided by a water tank on the roof that'd then be hooked up to the sink and shower below. This all makes the train car a very comfortable home with a ton of potential, and it also comes with some unique perks. For starters, you're guaranteed to never get robbed again by giving your house the most effective defense system yet, the masterful disguise of a horrible graffiti-covered train. Alongside its clever camouflage, you also don't have to pay property tax on the train house as it's technically classified as rolling stock, not real estate. The only caveat is that despite owning the rail car, you will need to rent a track for it to sit on, which can cost anywhere between $200 to $1,000 per month. But you can legally use a locomotive to tow the train wherever you want and freely travel across the states, making it one of the largest and coziest mobile homes in the world. Back in 2012, Liz listed the home for sale for $89,000. But it's unclear whether anybody bought it. Still, in my opinion, for a portable train house that's essentially burglar-proof, that's a bargain. If you're on the fence about buying the home, why not have a test drive in a train hotel? Situated in Glacier National Park, Montana, is an abandoned train wagon dating back to World War II. But the GN X215 caboose has been totally refurbished with 3 bedrooms that can sleep up to 6 people. It also boasts a fully equipped kitchen, and one of the rooms has a fireplace so you can shovel coal and live out your wildest train driver fantasies. Available for $170 a night, you can spend an evening with 5 friends in this beautiful caboose, and I guarantee you'll be putting in an offer on your own train house the very next morning. After all, abandoned vehicles are the perfect renovation project. With some time, money, and a little elbow grease, it isn't hard to convert a rail car or van into a functional living space. Airplanes, on the other hand, kind of a different story. An old dilapidated plane stranded in the middle of the woods in Oregon might sound like the perfect setting for a horror movie, but when you approach this clearing in Hillsboro, you aren't met by a zombie horde or a mass killer. Instead, you'll find the aircraft's friendly owner, Bruce Campbell, who has been living in it for over 20 years. Campbell is a retired engineer who bought the Boeing 727 when it retired from service in 1999 and had it flown to Oregon from Greece. Little did the plane know that was the last flight of its life, as it would soon start anew as a fully functioning home. The plane itself is 1,066 square feet, weighs about 70,000 pounds, and cost Bruce a hefty $100,000 to purchase. But 2 years and an additional $120,000 later, Bruce had fitted the interior with a working shower, a fridge, and a private bedroom with a futon. The home is pretty cozy, and the only downside is that it has no central heating and very weak phone service. But Bruce's solutions are as practical as he is, as he fends off the cold with a heated blanket and finds small amounts of signal by pushing his phone up against the window whenever he makes a call. should he have on airplane mode anyway? If you ever find yourself in Hillsborough, you should pay Bruce a visit because he welcomes guests all year round and regularly lets them sit in the cockpit and play with the plane's controls. That's awesome. But if you want to stay somewhere a little less rudimentary and a little more centrally heated, Bruce's place isn't your only shot at sleeping in an airplane abode. In Costa Rica's Manuel Antonio jungle sits another converted Boeing 727 that looks like it's crash-landed into the canopy. But unlike Bruce's grounded airplane, this one is available for rent, and it's actually a suite in a hotel. The plane was built in 1965, and in a past life, it was a South Africa Air and Avianca Airlines workhorse. But today, the Hotel Costa Verde has converted it into a fully refurbished 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom suite with a wooden interior that sits on top of a 50-foot platform. The hotel lists it as their most exclusive suite, and during high season, a stay will cost you $406 per night. But during the winter months, those sky-high rates can fall as low as $260, which is far more reasonable. Especially as the room houses up to 6 people, so you can split the price with 5 of your buds. I wonder if we can pay in air miles. The way that both Bruce and the Costa Verde transformed those scrapped airplanes into buildings is pretty impressive. But nobody has mastered turning one man's trash into treasure like Gregory Klon, a California-based artist who literally builds homes out of dumpsters. See, Greg initially gained notoriety online in 2011 for his home built inside a $2,000 waste container. But before you laugh, despite the dumpster's cramped size and trashy exterior, it was able to house a fully functioning abode with a bed, shower, stove, and a flushing toilet. Greg wasn't satisfied with the basics, so he also installed a minibar and barbecue in the home, showing that you can live small and retain some of life's simple pleasures. This dumpster home was such a success that Greg started building more and giving them to homeless people to live in. Each mini house is constructed from scrap materials taken from garbage dumped on the streets, and today Greg hosts workshops so he can teach volunteers how to build the trash pads themselves. So not only do the homes guarantee a dry place to sleep for a homeless person, it also clears the street of discarded waste, and each one is made for less than $100, making them incredibly economical. Talk about recycling responsibly. Old Greg really promised to keep the streets clean. And the next time someone tells you your room is a dump, take it as a compliment, because these dumpsters are pretty dang dripped out. Of course, I'd still avoid bringing up the fact that you live in a dumpster on a first date. Though it could be worse, you could live in an old concrete sewage pipe. These old poop pipes are now totally functional tiny houses, and although this lot looks like a construction site, these so-called O-Pods are the brainchild of James Law and his company Cybertexture. They were created as a low-cost alternative to the extortionately expensive Hong Kong housing market, which was ranked the world's most unaffordable city for the 14th year in a row in 2025. The O-Pods are built out of repurposed stackable concrete water pipes that measure 8.2 feet across, and that feels cramped, but each one is kitted out with all the amenities you could need for cooking, bathing, and sleeping comfortably. Furthermore, the windows on either end are double glazed for insulation and work as doors. And the best part? The whole tube weighs just 22 tons, so it can easily be moved wherever you want on the back of a truck. Of course, at only 100 square feet, the O-Pods really put the tiny into tiny house. But James believed that these tubes would be perfectly adequate for young people looking for temporary housing like students. They're currently only at the prototype stage, but James estimates that they'll eventually be sold for around $15,000 per unit. And hey, when rent prices are at an all-time high, it's either a repurposed concrete water pipe or an end-use one. And I know which one I'd rather live in. Seriously, the housing market is getting so dire you'd think we're running out of land to build on. In Hong Kong alone, over 200,000 people live in coffin homes, which are subdivided apartments that are so small people barely have room to stretch out their legs. So it's no wonder that some people are ditching land altogether and moving to prime real estate out on the high seas. This terrifying property is Spitbank Fort, a military fortification built on England's south coast in 1867 to protect the country from invasion. It was used in both World Wars before being abandoned in 1956 as Britain started abolishing its coastal artillery. But the fort didn't die completely, and thankfully someone recognized its potential. In 2009, it was sold for over $1.2 million to British entrepreneur Mike Clare, who remodeled it into a luxury hotel. From a distance, the structure still doesn't look very homely, and if you booked a stay there, I'm sure you'd get pretty worried about your decision as you approached. But once you head inside, you'll find that its 33,000 square feet of space is now filled with 9 en-suite bedrooms, a spa, and a luxury restaurant. This is definitely the most glamorous military fort ever. But unfortunately, the hotel permanently closed during the pandemic, and in early 2025, Mike Clare was forced to sell it for around $1.4 million. Still, Spitbank has inspired other property developers, and in 2018, the Hale Sands Fort was listed for sale on a British real estate website, Rightmove. Hilariously, it was listed as a detached home. Yeah, I'd imagine so, considering it's in the middle of the sea. After being built on England's west coast in 1919, the fort was also abandoned in '56. But in 2018, an anonymous buyer purchased it for $148,000, no doubt intending to model it after Spitbank and give the rusty old fort an international makeover. If these seafaring citadels have proven anything, it's that the planet is full of old structures that can be renovated and people can really turn anything into a comfortable home, like these soup cans. Just kidding, these are actually grain silos. Then back in 2024, Sydney O'Neill from Alabama went viral on TikTok after showing off her parents' agricultural abode. She explained that her parents bought some land 2 to 3 years prior before buying the silos and spending around $100,000 converting them into a full-on home. One silo holds the kitchen, living room, 2 bathrooms, and a laundry room, while the other contains the master bedroom with an en-suite and an upstairs space for storage. Both of the tin cans are connected with a hallway, and today they're designed to house humans, not grain, with electricity and running water. They're also totally insulated because technically each silo house is made up of 2 silos that are stacked together like nesting dolls, with spray foam insulation filling the space between them. That way the houses stay completely warm, but the exterior and interior retain the silo's characteristic metallic look. The family thought of everything. And they even built a small safe room in one of the silos that functions as a tornado shelter. Ain't no twister whisking this family away to Munchkin Land. But of course, even if they do get blown away, it isn't the end of the world, because they can just drop off in Idaho and spend a night in the Big Idaho Potato Hotel. Now, whether they're baked, boiled, mashed, fried, turned to chips, or hash brownified, I love taters. But I'm not sure I'd like to live inside one. Still, if you disagree, then the Big Idaho Potato Hotel is the place for you. See, in 2012, the Idaho Potato Center turned 75, and to celebrate the anniversary, a 28-foot-long, 12-foot-wide, and 6-ton potato was created out of steel, plaster, and concrete. Then it was driven across the country on a 7-year national tour before being retired. But a former member of the touring team called Kristen Wolf knew that this spectacular spot had some life left in it. So in 2019, she converted the tater into a 1-bed Airbnb located in South Boise, Idaho. It definitely gives a new meaning to the term starched sheets. And the potato's walls were fitted with 10-inch thick, expanding foam for insulation, and an underground pipe that acts as a natural fan. Furthermore, despite the unassuming exterior, this hotel is beautifully furnished with a queen-size bed, plus a separate silo for the bathroom that's kitted out with a fireplace and hot tub, so you can finally feel like a boiled potato. At $189 a night, the hotel is pretty affordable, and for those who yearn to hit the potato sack, lay down with some lays and hang out with their best spuds, the hotel is a match made in heaven. Moving from Spud to Sputnik, the wacky tiny house trend gets much more high-tech than potato tales, and this next pad is more at home on the moon than a farm. If you woke up in this structure, you'd be forgiven for thinking that you just crash-landed on another planet, but it actually sits on the banks of Washington's Columbia River, and it's really a home that's an exact replica of the Apollo lunar lander that reached the moon in 1969. Nice. Built by a naval architect called Kurt Hughes over the course of 4 years, the Earthbound lunar lander was his response to the tiny house trend with an interstellar twist. He had 30 years of experience designing small catamarans, so he knew exactly how to optimize the stuck-in-one-place craft's 250 feet of square footage, with functional lights, running water, a bathroom, and a fully equipped kitchen. He even placed the bedroom in a section at the bottom of the lander that's accessible via a staircase, allowing you to light out and look up at the giant skylight above. This dome window is also fitted with a planetarium that allows you to feel like you're really flying through space. In fact, the entire interior has been designed to look like a real lunar lander for maximum authenticity, down to the anti-gravity pads on the ceiling. But this petite probe doesn't just look cool, it's also super economical. An energy-efficient heat pump keeps the structure toasty, and Kurt stated that he never has to pay more than $25 for electricity per month. Wow, that might be the most incredible feature. This is one small step for man, one giant leap for tiny house kind. Now let's roll back from 1967 to 1945 as we check out a house that was inspired by the end of World War II. After the war, the Netherlands were struggling to rebuild, and they knew that they needed a lot of new houses to restore their cities and keep up with the rising population from the post-war baby boom. But they wanted these new structures to be creative, so in 1968 they started offering grants for experimental housing, and an architect called Piet Bloem rose to the challenge. He proposed a question that no one had ever asked. Why do homes have to sit the right way up? And why can't they all be built on an angle? This crazy idea resulted in the invention of cube houses, a design that's a headache to look at but a dream to live in. They look pretty ridiculous, but each concrete cube is a pretty roomy 72 feet by 25 feet that's all held up by a hexagonal pylon. The inch-thick walls and rock wool insulation provides warmth and soundproofing, but I know what you're thinking. I don't care how large or well insulated it is, living on a permanent angle sounds like a nightmare. But fear not, these walls are built at a 54.7 degree angle with the floor, giving you a flat surface for your furniture on each of the building's 3 stories. Interestingly, this design does simultaneously render a quarter of the 1,000 square foot space unusable due to the low angled ceilings, which is pretty inefficient. But when the first 3 cubes were built in 1974 near Eindhoven, they were so popular that 18 more were built 3 years later in Helmond. The success continued, and by 1982, construction on 38 more cube houses commenced in Rotterdam. Now, the aesthetics of the 70s and 80s were questionable at best, but the houses weren't just a passing trend, and 3 more were built in Toronto in 1996. It is a little hard to take the building seriously, but who are we to judge? After all, home is square the heart is. Piet's design has certainly withstood the test of time, unlike this next house, which only stood for a few short months in 2022. A 2-story condo in the heart of Los Angeles would usually be some expensive real estate. But despite this property's low carbon footprint and abundance of natural light, it's totally free.
Wow, nice.
Because it's made out of cardboard. See, in 2022, an architect called James Safari Parker found himself living on the streets of Skid Row, an area of LA with one of the largest populations of homeless people in the US. But James soon set about building a new home by constructing a 2-story condo with scrap cardboard and wood that he found in the surrounding area. Construction on the cardboard castle took several months, but his work paid off because the result was no ordinary shelter. Inside, it was kitted out with a sofa, a table, and a Christmas tree. And it was even built on wheels for easy transportation. A video of the house went viral on TikTok, catching the attention of Chandrika Medivir, an LA-based artist popular for creating sculptures out of aluminum foil. Chandrika was inspired by the story, so she met up with James and helped to give his home a bright, shiny exterior. The foil acted as insulation that kept the shelter cool while simultaneously bringing more attention to James's situation. But unfortunately, this extra attention meant LA's government caught wind and demolished it for breaching encampment laws. Once again, James was left without a home. But Chandrika started a fundraising campaign and soon raised $16,000 in online donations so James could afford to move into some temporary housing while he tried to get his life back on track. Hopefully the virality of the cardboard house opens some career doors for him. If that's what he can do with scraps, imagine what he could build with actual bricks. Building a 2-story house from scratch is incredibly impressive, and if I wanted to create my own home, I definitely need a solid base to start with. Something as solid as an entire school bus. In 2020, Rachel Dix and her carpenter husband Sam shipped a 38 by 8-foot school bus from New York to their home in Bristol, England. Then, over the next 6 months, they spent 800 hours and over $44,000 renovating it into their dream home. On the outside, it still looks like a standard bus, but inside, the screaming children and bubblegum-covered seats have been replaced with a cozy kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom with solar-powered electrics and a water tank. Damn, that bus makes my apartment look like a total dump. Flipping a school bus is such a common conversion that it's officially called a schoolie. Sick, brah. But Rachel designed the entire interior herself and Sam built it all by hand. So the bus is a totally original creation, and during the build, Rachel actually gave birth to their second son, Bodhi, inside the mobile home. Imagine telling the bus's old driver that the vehicle would one day be used as a delivery room. Incredibly, Bodhi's birth certificate lists American School Bus as his official place of birth. And honestly, without context, that sounds pretty trashy. But while Bodhi might face some teasing when he grows up and goes to school, when the other kids see the cozy bus that he calls home, they won't be laughing anymore. The Dixes aren't the only ones who've had sky-high aspirations to convert a school bus, and across the pond in Wisconsin, hunting enthusiast Jesse Kaufman has transformed a 72-seater into the world's craziest deer stand. The hunting platform's first inception came when Jesse's dad found an abandoned 28,000-liter fuel tank and decided to create a deer stand by placing a pop-up camper on top. The plan worked, but unfortunately, the lightweight camper was eventually blown off the base in a storm. Jesse liked Papa Kaufman's idea, so in 2017 he decided to make a sturdier version by taking an entire school bus and using an excavator to place it on the tanker. His first attempt literally fell short when the bus toppled down and was destroyed. But Jesse ain't no quitter, and he immediately bought another bus from a neighbor for $400 and came up with another plan. His solution involved building a dirt ramp all the way up to the tank, which allowed him to simply push the bus to the top of the structure before clearing the dirt away once it was mounted. After that, he welded the bus to the base and placed a converted hay elevator at the bottom to act as stairs. With that, the world's tallest bus stop was complete, and today it's pretty cozy inside with fold-out couches, a poker table, and a working TV with a satellite dish. I'm not a fan of hunting, but this is an awesome metal treehouse, and I could easily live up there full-time. Forget Bambi, pass me the remote and some chips. The Kaufman's bus would make an awesome secret hideaway, but it isn't exactly discreet. If you want real privacy, then you should really go underground. And there's no better option than a secret panic room inside your basement. TikToker Aurora Blazing Star's beautiful house definitely isn't laughable, and her interior design videos show what a lovely home it is to live in. The family has been there for 4 years, but in 2024, Aurora and her husband discovered something that wiped the smiles off their faces when they found a creepy hidden room in their basement while removing the carpet. The space was concealed behind a sliding wall and a metal door that locked from the outside, and it contained a working light switch, stained floors, and a drain. Aurora's viewers started theorizing that the previous owners had sinister reasons for constructing the space, but when the couple scanned the room with a blacklight, they didn't find any suspicious stains, and when the cops arrived, they said they couldn't find any evidence of crime. So Aurora currently believes that the room was probably a panic room or a gun safe, but that doesn't explain why it locks from the outside. And if I was them, I'd probably consider moving. Still, not all secret rooms are so creepy, and some homeowners have built their own hidden spaces that can turn a bog-standard house into something spectacular. This TikToker turned their entire basement into a panic room by hiding the entrance under their kitchen island. Similarly, other TikTokers have gone viral for displaying their home's hidden cinemas, secret bars, and reading nooks that they've constructed under beds, beneath secret hatches, and of course, behind bookcases. This classic bookcase passage has been likened to the badge Batcave due to the fireman's pole that leads to an extensive tunnel network that you can use to escape to the outside world. This specific secret passage was created by Murphy Door, a company that will install a custom bookcase door into your home with prices that start at $2,000 and go up to $19,000 if you want the passage to be armored. Honestly, I'd probably use my panic room to read and build model trains, so I think I'd go with the cheaper option. But secret rooms can also be used to protect your most prized possessions from would-be thieves. Take this historic Victorian house in San Francisco owned by brothers Corey and Ben McMills. At first glance, it looks like it probably contains a dusty old parlor and a collection of creepy haunted dolls. But in reality, the front windows open up like doors revealing a hidden garage that's large enough for 4 cars. See, initially, the entire house was divided into several apartments that the McMills rented out, but they knew that they could make the property much more valuable if it had space for parking. The brothers already ran their own construction company, so they probably could have installed a garage themselves, but there was a hitch. The city of San Francisco mandated that the front facades of the historical home had to be preserved, so the brothers couldn't just throw on any old garage door and call it a day. Instead of giving up, they teamed up with an architect called Robert Bowles in 2011 to solve the problem with this ingenious solution. The ground floor of the building was completely cleared for the garage, and they placed the front wall on hydraulic hinges so that the house's entire facade could become the door. Now, not only does this stick to the city's mandate by keeping the building's Victorian aesthetic, it also keeps their tenants' cars safe by hiding them in a place no one will ever suspect to look. You might think that this home is incredibly unique, but across the world in Ponsonby, New Zealand, an architect called Jonathan Smith and his wife Melody independently had a very similar idea. In 2014, the Smiths decided to renovate their cottage by extending its back deck. But as they worked on the renovation, they also came up with an incredible parking solution by adding a secret garage to the front of the house. Can you spot it? No? Well, at the click of a button, the windows and picket fence roll back to reveal a garage with room for the Smiths family car. That's one way to bamboozle burglars. But hidden parking isn't just reserved for unassuming-looking homes, and sometimes the pizzazz of a secret garage is matched by the pizzazz of the house. This 20-person restored farmhouse in South Limburg, Holland has 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a swimming pool, and oh yeah, an underground garage that would make Batman blush. If you want to live out your wildest Cape Crusader fantasies, then you can actually rent the property for a vacation, but with a starting price of over $5,000 a night, you'll need Bruce Wayne's budget to afford it. And remember, you'll have to pay to rent a car too, so you can have something to park. That's too expensive for my taste, so let's go from the Batcave to the doghouse as we look at an entire home that's hidden in plain sight. Driving along Highway 95 in Idaho, you'd be forgiven for thinking this big guy is nothing more than an adorable sculpture. But despite his quirky exterior, the Beagle is actually a fully functional bed and breakfast. Affectionately named Sweet Willie, this 30-foot pooch makes up the Dog Bark Park Inn, and it's run by the married chainsaw artist Dennis Sullivan and Francis Conklin. And no, chainsaw artist isn't slang for serial killer or a new genre of music. It's a practice that involves carving wooden sculptures with a chainsaw. Pretty sweet, right? Dennis and Francis initially met through their shared love of the art form and eventually made enough money from their carvings of little dogs to build Big Willie and open the Bee and Beagle in 1997. Willie is a pretty odd shape for a hotel, but the spacious interior sleeps up to 4 people with a master bedroom in his stomach and a loft in his head that's adorably dog-themed. The B&B doesn't have a bathroom, but if you need to relieve yourself, you can just channel your inner dog and use the giant fire hydrant outhouse nearby. Unfortunately, in 2024, the Conklins announced their retirement, and with that, the closure of Willie as a hotel. But don't worry, the big guy wasn't put to sleep, and he still stands as a landmark to let passersby marvel at this magnificent structure. The Conklins really blurred the lines between art and architecture, but they aren't the only ones. And Erwin Worm is an Austrian artist who's known for creating wacky sculptures that are even stranger than his name. In 2003, he branched into the property market by creating Fat House, which is exactly what it sounds like. The 23-foot house has all the markers of a regular suburban home with a tiled roof, a center door, and windows on either side. But instead of bricks, the distinct walls are built out of a metal frame and polystyrene that makes them appear to swell like bulging flesh. The property looks pretty goofy, but when you step inside, you're bound to stop laughing, as you'll find it's totally empty, apart from a projected video of the house talking existentially about itself.
But the question is now, am I an artwork? I am a house, yes.
Hey, it kinda looks like me. See, the Fat House is actually an art piece that was built as a commentary on middle-class consumerism and greed as society grows fat with fast food, new cars, and larger homes. That's no laughing matter, and the Fat House isn't Mr. Worm's only artistic abode. In 2006, Worm had an exhibition at the MUMOK Museum in Vienna, and to promote it, he planted an upside-down house on the side of the building. It looks like some poor homeowner has been blown up there by a tornado, and Worm named the art piece House Attack. Man, I know I'd have a house attack if I looked up and saw that thing teetering over me. The house was built with a wedge-shaped gap in the roof and then carefully craned into position, and Worm has said that it serves as a symbol for everyday occurrences as well as small-mindedness. Whatever the heck that means. Unlike the Fat House, the home didn't have an interior at all, as it was just a temporary exhibition, and it was dismantled in 2007. But in 2008, it was bought by Austrian construction company Strabag, and today you can find it displayed on the roof of their headquarters near Bratislava. That's great, but I'm not sure it's the best advertisement for a construction company. Wow, that's a lot of crazy houses, with even crazier interiors. If you had to live in one of these homes, which one would you choose and why? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.